Good afternoon. It's Monday, the 23rd of February. I'm Erin Viner, and this is IBA News broadcasting from Jerusalem. The victim of the knife attack at the Capitol is being released from hospital today, one day after Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat and his bodyguard personally subdued the 19-year-old Palestinian terrorist in front of City Hall before he could attack more bystanders. His Honor said that despite the incident, Jerusalem is a safe city.
Jerusalem Mayor Nir Barkat continued with his routine schedule today, announcing this afternoon the launch of the Jerusalem Marathon, his pet project. He wasn't about to let a knife-wielding Palestinian terrorist jeopardize this or any other events in the city. Yesterday afternoon, a young Palestinian man began attacking passers-by at the junction next to City Hall. He struck 27-year-old Abraham Goldschmidt, a yeshiva student and father of 4, in the back. Surveillance tape showed how Goldschmidt hit back with his bag. It happened just as the mayor's car was stopped at the light. Barkat, a former paratrooper commander, and his bodyguard rushed to help. The guard drew his pistol and the terrorist dropped the knife, and Barkat quickly tackled him to the ground. The terrorist was a 19-year-old Palestinian from the West Bank who had entered Jerusalem illegally. Security forces searched the terrorist's house in El Bire. Recalling the event today, Mayor Barkat said Jerusalem shouldn't be tarnished by terrorist attacks, and the best way to defeat terrorism was to return to routine.
One of the best ways to fight terror is not only to stop it on the spot, but actually not to maintain your normal activity and normal life. It is a message that the people of Jerusalem, the people that come to the marathon, are participating in saying, we will not deter. Terror will not frighten us. We'll continue our life, continue with more force, with more determination. So to continue with a normal life and to continue the events is something that we've made all along, throughout some tough times we had in the past. The reality is that when you look at the statistics, Jerusalem is one of the safest cities in the world. Far safer than New York, than London, than Paris, than practically almost every average city you know. Check out the statistics, the unfortunately murder rates, and you'll find that crime and terror together in the city of Jerusalem is the lowest in the world. My message is, if you haven't yet registered, come and be part of the very, very clear answer we give to terror. We will not deter, we will fight and win.
From Jerusalem, this is Aryeh O'Sullivan for IBA News.
The Shin Bet Security Service today revealed that it is holding 11 Hamas members from Hebron for planning suicide bombings and other attacks against Israel. 20-year-old Sahib Saltoun and his 28-year-old cousin Salam have been identified as the ringleaders of the cell. The two have confessed to having attempted to carry out an attack at the Tel Rumeida neighborhood of Hebron last December, but said that the bomb that they planted failed to explode. The suspects were arrested in joint raids with IDF forces in January. Security officials say that the cell members compiled intelligence information concerning the movement of Israelis in Hebron and Jerusalem in preparation of further terror attacks and revealed the whereabouts of bombs and weapons that they stockpiled. Talks between the P5+1 countries and Iran continued for the second and final day in Geneva. While no details have emerged from the meetings between U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry and Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, officials say that negotiators are still hoping to reach common ground. We get more in this report from IBA's Margot Dudkevich.
The last day of talks in Geneva of Iran's disputed nuclear program continued today, with the sides seeking to narrow the gaps and strike an agreement on a political framework by March 31st. The talks have reached a sensitive stage, with the sides yet to work out the pace of lifting existing sanctions imposed by the West on the Islamic Republic and how to reduce Iran's potential to make nuclear weapons. The deadline to establish a comprehensive agreement and set up all technical details is set for July 1st. Yesterday, Kerry and Iran's Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif held discussions for 2 hours behind closed doors. According to reports, the two spent most of the day separately negotiating technical details. Zarif later told Iranian state media the talks produced good discussions but no agreement. He called the fundamental gap a psychological one, saying differences will remain as long as Western countries view the threat of sanctions as a lever to exert pressure on Iran. Prior to the start of the current round of talks, Kerry warned President Barack Obama will not agree to extend the deadline again, saying there is still a distance to go. Speaking yesterday to reporters, the director of China's Arms Control Department in the Foreign Ministry said he believes the sides will encounter further difficulties on agreeing to a political framework as the March deadline approaches.
It's just very normal for negotiations, and I think we do anticipate, if not experience, that more difficulties, especially when we proceed to the negotiation of the details. Devil lies in details, so that's why I think we anticipate it more difficult as we move to the final phase. But our resolve is greater than the difficulties, and I hope that this is the sentiments expressed within E3+3 and Iran.
Iran's negotiations with the P5+1 group, the United States, Britain, France, Germany, Russia and China, have already missed a November 2014 target date. The outcome of the current round of talks is unclear, but at this point it appears doubtful a framework for an agreement will be reached by the end of March.
Thank you all.
Margaret Dudkiewicz, IBA News.
Turning to political news, and the former caretaker at the Prime Minister's official residence is asking for police protection. The spiritual leader of Shas called the national anthem Hatikva a stupid song, and the Likud lost its appeal against V15. Here with all the election developments is IBA's political correspondent Ellie Wogelenter.
The former caretaker at the Prime Minister's residence, who provided evidence to police about fiscal improprieties, has demanded that the police provide him with a security detail after claims that threats were made on his life. Naftali's lawyer submitted a letter to Police Chief Yochanan Danino asking for protective services following alleged threats against his client made on Facebook. The lawyer said his client told him he received several messages, including one that threatened to slaughter him if he doesn't leave Netanyahu alone. "We will behead you like Daesh," the alleged threat continued, using the Arabic acronym for ISIS. Meanwhile, Naftali has threatened to sue Netanyahu and several Likud leaders, including Interior Minister Gilad Erdan and Intelligence Minister Yuval Steinitz, for defamation if they do not apologize by noon today for remarks they made against him. Naftali has also demanded compensation of 100,000 shekels. Police Inspector General Yochanan Danino said the evidence and testimony given by Naftali over 11 hours of questioning on Thursday night appear to justify opening an investigation into the allegations. Turning to Shas, which is receiving widespread criticism after its spiritual leader, Rabbi Shlomo Cohen, called the national anthem Hatikva a stupid song and disparaged those who sing it. Speaking at a Shas campaign rally in Netivot last night, Cohen, the head of Shas's Council of Torah Sages, told a story about the installation ceremony of Yitzhak Nissim as chief rabbi of Israel in 1955, when Cohen was sitting next to Shas's founder, the late Rabbi Ovadia Yosef. He said that when the crowd stood and started singing Hatikva, "I thought, they're crazy, and I didn't stand. The rabbi stood." Cohen also attacked the national religious movement, blasting its members for sending their young men to the army and hinting they were comparable to Amalek, the biblical nemesis of the Jewish people. Meanwhile, the chairman of the Central Election Commission has rejected a petition by the Likud party against the V15 organization, which it claimed was a front for Zionist Union leader Isaac Herzog. In his ruling, Justice Salim Jubran found that the Likud was unable to prove that the Zionist Union and Meretz illegally accepted donations from non-Israeli citizens and organizations with foreign funding via F-15, which seeks Prime Minister Netanyahu's defeat in the election. V-15 is partly funded by S. Daniel Abraham and Daniel Lubetsky, who are not Israeli citizens. Meretz and the Zionist Union denied any connection to V-15 or the other organizations One Voice and Molad, and vice versa. Jubran ordered Likud to pay 48,000 shekels in legal costs accumulated by the organizations. Jubran said most of Likud's proof for a connection between the organizations and the parties was based on Facebook posts and rumors. Jubran also said that the party failed to prove that V15 was campaigning for a specific party for it to be illegal and not the organization's stated purpose of changing the country's leadership. Aaron?
Thanks for that report. Well, with just 3 weeks to go, all parties running for the Knesset will be exerting a final push before Election Day on March 17th. IBA's Ellie Wogelenter asked Times of Israel editor David Horovitz about his thoughts on the campaign so far.
I still think it's, it's open. I think, anyone who tells you they know who's going to win, you should smile indulgently and then move on. Obviously, I think the betting is that Netanyahu will be re-elected. But, this is volatile Israel. All kinds of things can happen, and we've seen all kinds of things have been happening. I think maybe the key point is that your sense is that nobody emerged to really challenge the public's perception that there's no alternative to Netanyahu. In other words, Isaac Herzog, Moshe Kachlon, Naftali Bennett, Yair Lapid, I don't think any of these are seen as really credible alternatives to Netanyahu. And although the polls between the parties are shifting around a little bit, the one thing that's consistent is Netanyahu is a long way ahead of other candidates when it comes to the public's belief as to who will be the next prime minister and even their preference.
Can you not see a possible scenario where, despite the high numbers of those two parties, the math won't work out and someone else will have to be chosen by President Rivlin to form a government?
Yeah, I think it's possible that there are two electorates, right? There's the people who vote on March the 17th, and then there's the political leaders who troop in to see President Rivlin after the votes have been counted. If the Likud is not dominant, if they don't do, fairly well, I think, there is so much animus to Netanyahu within the Knesset that I think many of these party leaders would want to do almost anything, certainly a great deal, to prevent Netanyahu being re-elected. So if it's not clear that Netanyahu and the Likud really have overwhelmingly a better prospect of forming a coalition, there will be some will within the political system to try and deprive Netanyahu of re-election.
Everybody always criticizes the whole process. Do you see anything positive about this election campaign?
Well, I don't know which aspects of the process do people criticize. People criticize the pure proportional representation system. People talk about the
campaign itself, the dirtiness of it, the lack of focusing on issues, the jokes that are made in the videos as opposed to seriousness.
Well, first of all, let's not delude ourselves that it's a serious and substantive process in other countries necessarily. I'm thinking of some of the American Senate and congressional campaigns where a 30-second campaign ad can get you elected. I think there's a lot of personality politics everywhere in the democratic world. It's up to the public. I think if people made plain that they sought answers on specific issues, and the more that they do, and the more that people come up with answers, the politicians would have to react. If some politicians did it better, I think it's a back and forth with the public. What I think is notable in this campaign is how polarized the media is. So especially the newspapers, I think more than in the past, if I'm not mistaken. I think this
in their anti-Bibi rhetoric.
I think the split. You've got your Yisrael Hayom, for whom Netanyahu can do no wrong, and you've got Yediot and Haaretz. But I think especially shrilly Yediot in this campaign. I think they're more hostile to Netanyahu. That's just my sense. Although they were certainly not in the Netanyahu camp before, I think the bitterness there, the Yisrael Hayom Yediot bitterness, is more stark than in the past. I actually think in previous elections that I remember, the advertising and the commercials have not been as dominant as they are potentially being this time. I think that, I've been quite struck by some of the commercials in which Netanyahu himself has starred. The one where he's, the babysitter, and he says, you don't want to leave the kids with Tzippi because by the time you get home, she might have gone over to the neighbors. It's funny. It doesn't matter which side of the spectrum you're at. There'll be people who say, yeah, well, he's better at doing commercials than running the country if you're an opponent of Netanyahu. But those commercials, I think, have been quite effective. We've seen the whole expenses scandal and apparently not affecting the polls significantly. But, again, all these things can play out. We don't know how the Congress speech is going to play out. We don't know if some of the other parties are going to exert themselves more effectively. I think, in retrospect, it may be that Messrs. Kachlon and Lapid come to regret that they didn't merge, and I think Lapid wanted to and Kachlon didn't. But, it's still a ways to go.
In regional news, Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi is calling for a joint Arab military force to counter the threat of Islamic militants. In a nationally televised address, Sisi said that Egypt has no interest in invading or attacking other nations, but will defend itself and the region in coordination with its Arab brothers. He revealed that both Jordan and the United Arab Emirates offered to dispatch military forces to aid his nation following last week's beheading of 21 Egyptian Coptic Christians by Islamic State terrorists in Libya. New U.S. Defense Secretary Ash Carter has arrived in Kuwait for strategy talks with American defense officials about how to counter the spreading influence of the Islamic State. Carter gathered the leading military brass, presidential envoys, and Washington's Middle East ambassadors for closed-door talks at the Americans' Camp Arifshan base in Kuwait. Ahead of the discussions, Carter said that the key to success against ISIS is ensuring that the countries they threaten can preserve gains achieved by the ongoing U.S.-led military campaign. He went on to declare that the U.S. will deliver a lasting defeat to the radical jihadis. The meeting was convened against the backdrop of heavy Republican criticism of President Barack Obama's strategy to counter Islamic extremism. It also coincides with the administration's request for Congress to authorize the use of military force against Islamic State forces. A disagreement between a passenger and a flight attendant over duty-free chocolate aboard a recent Israel flight to Bulgaria nearly became violent. A video clip of the incident, posted on Facebook by someone else on the flight, has gone viral. A female passenger is seen shouting in abusive language at a flight attendant, demanding that he sell her chocolate. Her sister also got involved, calling the attendant a piece of trash. The passenger's husband is then seen standing up and threatening the flight attendant, who later told reporters that the unruly passengers began misbehaving long before the incident shown in the clip, and that the crew had decided to stop selling duty-free items because of the disruption that they were causing. According to a statement released by Israel, passenger violence toward crew members is on the rise, and that the airline is doing everything in its power to eliminate the phenomenon, first and foremost for security reasons. The woman who started the incident later offered an apology for her behavior, and all three passengers hid their faces and dodged the media upon returning to the country this morning. Turning now to sports, and those who thought that a new basketball order was being established in Israel can think again. Despite all the hype about Hapoel Jerusalem prior to the tip-off, Maccabi Tel Aviv players prove that they are still number one. Maccabi easily bested Hapoel in the State Cup final 94-76 to win its sixth straight championship. Playing at home in the new Pais Arena, Jerusalem was brimming with confidence and surged to an 11-2 lead in the first minutes. But Tel Aviv roared back to hold a 46-42 halftime advantage and then seized control with a 16-2 third-quarter run, allowing them to cruise until the final buzzer. This was the 42nd State Cup title for Maccabi, which was led by Davin Smith with 27 points. Less than 24 hours after his heroic capture of a terrorist, as reported earlier, Jerusalem Mayor Barkat today held a press conference where he announced details of the 5th annual International Jerusalem Marathon. This year's competition is set for March 13th and is expected to draw some 2,200 participants from over 60 nations. Officials say that 25,000 runners are registered to take part in the four main races, which range from a grueling full marathon to a 5K friendly run through the streets of the capital. Jerusalem officials see the event as a major tourist endeavor that will hopefully fill hotel rooms and inject over 10 million shekels into the city's economy while placing the City of Gold on the world's map of marathons.
From an international point of view, we bring 2,200 runners from all around the world, from over 60 countries. And that's amazing. We're going to have people coming from the Bahamas. We're going to have people coming from the Vatican themselves. So it's really international. It's helping also branding the city.
And what kind of boost to the income of the city, the economy of the city, will this bring?
It's going to contribute to the city economy over 10 million shekel, which is a great, and you know, it's also branding and it's also bringing us tourists.
Television personality Jon Stewart has largely avoided the media since announcing that he is leaving his top-rated Daily Show. The Jewish-American comedian did grant a public interview yesterday, conducted by Katie Lazarus at Joe's Pub in New York, where he spoke about his mother and his relationship with Israel.
Do you feel like after you made your announcement that you're retiring, do you feel like you have like a zillion Jewish moms being like, what are you doing? What he says he's eating. What are you eating? What are you going to have for the next meal? Should I prepare the next meal?
You know, I had 1,000 Jewish moms before I announced anything, so it doesn't. That's whenever you do a show about current events, that's, you know, everybody will. is that really what you think about Israel? It's just something that we came up with on the show. Just saying, I mean, you should educate yourself on the settlements. That's all I'm saying. If you're not educated, I mean, I noticed you worked on Yom Kippur. I mean, I didn't say anything. I don't know why you did it. It's just, you know, you have children. I know your wife, God forbid, she's Catholic. But the important thing is, it's lovely. They did produce a 60 Minutes style news piece on me in Iran that ran on Iranian state television, which explains that I'm a CIA and a Mossad agent that was working with, and I actually sent that to my mother and said, how can a Mossad agent hate Israel? I work for their intelligence service.
Staying with arts and entertainment, and sadly, the Israeli entry Aya did not bring home the country's first ever Oscar for the Best Live Action Short Film, but the 87th Academy Awards did include some great Hollywood moments. The dark comedy Birdman won the film industry's highest recognition for Best Picture, holding a mirror to Hollywood and its struggling actors. The Best Actor and Actress awards did go to first-time winners. Eddie Redmayne won for his breakout role as physicist Stephen Hawking in the biographical movie The Theory of Everything. And as expected, Julianne Moore won for her portrayal of a university professor with Alzheimer's disease in Still Alice. Best Foreign Film went to the joint Danish-Polish film Ida, about an orphaned young woman about to become a nun who sets off to search the fate of her family after unexpectedly finding out that she's Jewish. One of the evening's entertainment highlights was the rousing medley of songs from the musical film classic The Sound of Music, performed by pop artist Lady Gaga, who then welcomed the film's much-loved and visibly moved star, Julie Andrews, onto the stage.
Ladies and gentlemen, the incomparable Julie Andrews.
Now taking a look at local finance, and the shekel today increased in strength against all major foreign currencies, while share prices on the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange put in a mixed performance. Here's a look at the afternoon numbers. The IBA weather team tells us we can expect another cloudy day tomorrow with the chance of scattered showers, strong winds in the north and mountainous regions causing hazy conditions. Here's the forecast at home and abroad over the next 24 hours. Thank you for being with us this afternoon. Laura Cornfield will be at this desk tomorrow to bring you the latest breaking news from Israel. Hope you'll join her. We now leave you with these breathtaking views of Mount Hermon after the weekend snowstorm. More than 2 meters of snow have accumulated, and yesterday alone the resort hosted at least 900 skiers. Many thousand more visitors are expected to take to the slopes in the days and weeks to come in what is shaping up to be a record-breaking ski season. I'm Erin Viner, wishing you a wonderful evening and shalom from Jerusalem.